Okay, so welcome each and every one of you to our fourth budget deliberation meeting. Bienvenue à notre quatrième réunion budgétaire. Are there volunteers for mover and a seconder? Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Yvon?
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that the agenda for the budget meeting of council held on March the 15th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried, adopté. Are there any pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None? Okay. Where we left off last week, we were discussing capital projects for public works, and there were some discussions near the end pertaining to additions or changes, and to be able to provide direction to public works in a timely fashion so they can proceed and do all the legwork as far as requests for tenders and so on, so we can move forward with projects for 2021. And to start off that discussion, I'll pass it on to you, to Jay, the CEO, so you can provide us with a summary of the discussion.
Well, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll provide it in the big picture, and then I truly am at council's disposal to correct me if I missed a few issues. But I think that if we summarize, I mean, points of agreement here. I think that all of council agrees that what you see on the roads and what you see in the ditches and sidewalks and our infrastructure for the taxes that you're paying, is what's important to you as well. And so that it seemed like that was obvious. And then the second thing I would say is that we also talked about the fact that, and there was a question raised about policy issues with respect to prioritization and so forth. And I believe that, that the manager described the system that he utilizes with respect to protection of savings, return on investment, number of complaints, and then consultation with his subforeman. And based on that, there's a capital list that was provided with an assumption of that is the request this year. I guess the manager of Public Works, knowing what reality will look like with council, didn't ask for everything that he would have liked to have in order to make, him a little less stressful during the year. So he's limited at a budget level, and then he's shown what is being carried over, and we're going to be doing a asset management analysis that'll be a lot more detail for that. But so in general, it was accepted as to what was being provided for by the manager of Public Works. Now, at the end, there was some discussion with respect to items that are not provided for on this year's list, and being surprised because of how bad the condition of certain roads are, or what have you. And so there were some discussions and suggestions regarding that. I believe, though, that part of his list, the only two issues that, in my opinion, were contentious, or not contentious because that sounds so negative, but were a question mark as to whether we wanted to spend that, was a sidewalk from Michaud to Whitewoods, and repairs to the Public Works building. We can debate and defend that, but what my recommendation is that as with all of the presentations, what we're doing is pulling out those items because they're going to be determining the tax level towards the end, and we will be bringing those issues back in a consolidated form for discussions, and there'll be debate on each one of those items. So the reason I'm bringing that up, and then there were some additions such as Muscatine Road, I believe, with some patching, and Pine Poultry Road, and there may be more. My purpose, respectfully here, and I mentioned it before, is to, if there isn't any objection other than the two that I raised, is to seek council's approval to allow the manager of Public Works to get moving on tendering, because if we don't, my view, the way this is going, is probably mid-April. And so by the time he gets his documentation out, will be about mid-May. And so I would prefer, if you allow and indulge us, if it's going to be approved anyway, that those that are not contentious move forward now. And I leave that to you, Mr. Chair. I think that's Yvonne.
Thank you very much, Jay. To you, Madame Meres, yes. Year on year, I've been with Sean, I guess now for 2 or 3 years, and it's an ongoing issue when with respect to trying to get the right people, the right companies, and to have a fair amount of people to bid on various jobs. And if we accept the budget in mid-April, at the end of April, well, these factors don't play in anymore. So then we're limited with contractors that have availability to bid on these jobs. And Sean, it's always been a situation where, and I remember him saying, I kind of wish the budget would have passed earlier, because I would give me a lot of leeway with respect to bids and have the bids submitted in time to do the work. Because at the end of the year, it's just a hassle to try to get the jobs done completed before the frost comes into play. So I would agree. I think, and I hope the council will agree as well, that we do look at these very important factors of having whatever we've discussed it and that are a sure thing to happen this year, that we allow that to happen, because we do need to get ahead, and it's going to help us considerably, and it's going to help Sean a lot and the men that work under him. So I've asked councils to support that. But there's another thing I wanted to point out as well. I looked at the building in Verner, and it's not a good position. It's not good at all whatsoever. It's fallen apart. And we've put this back for years now. And I'm deeply concerned with the situation. We had a health issue there. We got rats and mice in the lunchrooms. We got leaking roofs. It's not good. I realize there's money involved in trying to repair, but we do have to repair these buildings because we do have to maintain we have to keep care of our equipment that we've spent so much money on. So that's another thing I want you people to really consider. I don't think we should walk away from the idea of this year and not approving that budget for that building. He needs that building. He needs it to be repaired. And it's in a good location. And we've got natural gas to heat our buildings, which is much cheaper to run. I think we should invest in that as well. It's something very before it becomes a real issue with the Board of Health.
Sorry, Yvonne, respectfully, my issue is that if we're going to debate that, we can debate it now, but what my recommendation would be is that conversation happen after that in the
yeah, I realize that, Jay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem. No, you're chairing. I'm just saying that, obviously it's a source of contention and so is pine poultry, but if we park those, move them over, what can we agree to is all I'm asking, because it would help all of us.
I realize that.
Sorry.
So I see Dan Revita's hand up. Sir, Councillor Dan, please.
Yes, I just want to bring back the point about the Ethel Street sidewalk. So we're going to leave the safety of children in the hands. We're going to put ourselves in a position where we're going to be liable in the sense if somebody gets hit there by not accepting the sidewalk. The consortium wrote a letter to us. The school wrote a letter to us. We know that it's a problem because we put a Coast Guard there, or potentially a guard there. So I just want it stated in the notes that I'm appalled at the decision that we're trying to scuffle that when it's a security of children involved. And if you people don't favor your children, well, then that's the problem. I have a problem with it.
There you go.
Thank you, Dan. I would agree. Lisa Nickel, please.
Okay, well, you know what? I heard it a little bit differently. I think after the talk and that we had about sidewalks and the letter to whatever that Cross Guard, I was told that I was wrong. I was wrong about the letter. I did not remember the letter. And after you mentioned the letter, yes, it came back, and it's true that was they mentioned Ethel, they mentioned Resurrection, So, and at the end, I don't personally have a problem with the sidewalk. Okay, so, but I was right about the cross guard, because the cross guard, it's not put on the minutes and everything. I'm under the impression, because it's not put on paper, we gotta be hiring 3 cross guard. So that was what the minutes said. The sidewalk, Councillor Dan, I did not remember the letter. It was noted in the letter. So at the end, I don't have a problem with the sidewalk, and the sidewalk should not be put in the package. I think the garage should need to be talked again, because it's a big amount, and it will have to do we wanted to exchange about road safety and road maintenance. That was a higher priority for some of us. So I don't know, G, if I'm saying it, what you say today, you want, and the sidewalk should go in the package for today, because I think explanation was giving about safety and all that. But the garage is a big amount, and the
Okay.
garage should be brought back to be discussed again with the road.
Okay.
So
So just-
Councillor, okay, just go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, just-
Sorry.
And Jay came back to me on what I was, anyway. The fact of the matter is, what we want to do right now is that we want the council members to go back into the public works capital projects that we've already kind of agreed on, and to allow this to continue, so that Sean could do his job and get bids out as soon as possible. And I think we'll discuss the other issues, like the sidewalk that Dan mentioned in Lee's, and then the building, and we'll go on from there. Does anybody have a problem in approving what was put before us, as opposed to the jobs that need to be done this year, that Sean would like to move forward and get some bids on? So, Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, I just and we'll get that sidewalk on the list. I'm just looking for the page of the burner garage, because I want more information on the burner garage, but it sounds to me like these. I think we probably have consensus on the sidewalk now. So can we just put that one back on? And when we get back to the garage, I can't find the page, but it is a lot of money. I'm concerned about the fact that maybe an asset plan will come out later, and there'll be a bigger picture thing. And just to get more information on exactly what's happening with that money. But I'm just wondering if we can do a quick poll, and we can get that sidewalk done, and we can move on. Thank you.
Leo Mallette, Councillor Leo?
Can Sean highlight the projects that he wants you to be approved today, so we can move on with the tendering, and then we can vote on it or accept it, and then move on to the rest of the stuff.
I certainly don't have a problem with that, Councillor Leo. If others are willing to listen and hear. Go ahead, Jay.
I think we've already gone through it, Councillor Leo. I think it's the list that you have before you, save and accept the Werner Garage, and then there's a debate right now whether you want to add the sidewalks to wait for another day, or just approve it now if there's consensus.
I have no problem with it. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I will go to Denis Senecal, Councillor Denis, and then Councillor Rowley.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
sorry.
have the opportunity to speak, but let Councillor Denis and
I got a hard time seeing your hand. Okay, if we go ahead, Denis, and then.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I have is that I brought up at the last meeting, and it's my bridge in Roseley Bay, the natural trail. I don't want that to fall off the issues here. That should go with the garage and all that stuff at the end. That's just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you, Denis. Councillor Rowley, then Madame Meres.
I also agree, Yvonne, with what you're saying. We should move forward on issues. And definitely, if like stated, the sidewalk is a safety concern. So I also agree with this. We should move forward with this. So, and the rest we could discuss later, as like you said, the garage and Pine Poultry, that, and also the bridge. But for now, let's move forward with what we all agree on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley.
Or most of us agree on.
Thank you. Madame Meres?
Yes, you know what? The issue of the sidewalk on Ethel wasn't the fact that we don't worry about the safety of children. I think it was clarification that was needed. I endorse the sidewalk. There's no problem with that. The sooner we can get the sidewalks done, mostly in the vicinity of schools, when it's off season, when kids are not attending school. The issue of the building in Verner, I'd like that for discussion, at a council meeting, because our discussion at the last meeting was that we also wanted to look at a strategic direction on where goes what. And at the same time, it's a large amount, and I think more information would be appreciated. As far as the other roads, I, for one, do endorse putting Pine Poultry in the list of capital projects along with Muskasong, because if we're going to do a approval for tendering or go out for tenders, my understanding when I asked the question at a previous meeting is that we highlight the number of kilometers, the number of roads, and the work that needs to be done. So those roads would need to be included in the call for tenders. So I approve and recommend all the projects for the exception of the Verna Garage, which I'd like to be able to get more info and have that discussion at a different meeting. And I think that would provide a lot of direction to our manager of public works to proceed in getting tenders out for brushing, for cutting, for asphalt, for sidewalks, and remedial work for all the roads that we were discussing.
Thank you very much, Madam. Is there any other?
The mayor's comments are similar but slightly different than a few of you. So my recommendation is that those that have been discussed today, other than perhaps the sidewalk to Whitewoods, which seems to have unanimous support now, can be added to the general consensus is that we'll just move it into debate at the end. Because it isn't then you're going to debate it right now, and I don't think you're going to get consensus until we fully look at all of the issues with respect to that. So I'm looking at the numbers here, and those that are open for discussion we'll bring back to you with more detail, and those that seem to be approved right now we'll move forward if that's council's wish.
Question, Mr. Chair, does that mean, are we including Pine Poultry Road for brushing and cutting?
Not until
Brushing and ditching?
Not until we've come up with a solution for financing it and you've looked at the total picture, because right now it's in a vacuum and there is some debate that's happening. So what we've agreed is we're going through the process, and those that are not 100% agreed upon, because there is some significant debate, and I won't debate it now with respect to what we need to do to the Verner garage versus a strategic plan in 5 to 10 years to move it. I think that's something that can't be handled right now. So whether you do it at council or that, you're moving that, and then how to finance Pine Poultry. So if you just allow the process, Madam Mayor, we'll discuss all of your issues as points of contention in the budget after the presentations have happened.
So thank you, Jay, for that.
Lise has her hand up.
Lise, van de Senecal, oui, conseillère Lise.
Conseillère Lise.
Oh, Lise, no,
Sorry, the garage, just to make sure, the garage and poultry would be discussed before the budget is approved to make sure that it goes, so it's not extended till next year. So before, we're not approving the budget before we discuss the garage and poultry road. And
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
And Muskasong and
Muskasong,
the bridge, and we've caught your issues.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Well, that gives us direction, Mr. Chair.
So the direction is that if everybody's in favor of allowing Sean to go ahead with respect to what we've discussed it previously, I need we don't need a motion, just maybe a general consensus. Is everybody in favor allowing Sean to move ahead by show of hands? Okay, so we have, I think we have the majority.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will discuss the other matters such as pine poultry, muscason, and the garage before budget is completed. Does everyone understand that? Okay, I thank you very much, and now we can proceed with others. And I will now turn it to you, Madame Mayoress.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're following the schedule of what we were provided as far as agenda. So the next department would be Community Services, and that's on page 28 of 51 of our workbook. And hopefully with the operational budget and the capital list that our Director of Community Services provided us, we'll have the opportunity to go through that department today throughout this meeting. So what I'm going to do at this point, we have Stefan, our Director of Community Services. If you want to walk us through, and this way, if there are any questions as we move forward, just raise your hand and we'll be able to address those questions as we move on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. I know Council's had this document for quite some time now, and by being brief and to the point, I think it will allow Council more opportunity to discuss certain issues and provide time for Q&As. So if we go to page 29 and look at the 2021 budget highlights, just to highlight this, obviously, is what we're looking at as far as focus and changes is an increase to transfer for reserve for capital projects. We've included a $200,000 additional amount to that line item for this year. We're looking at phase 2 of our building condition assessment, which will also create for council and for our operations an asset management plan moving forward. As if you recall, phase 1, we did our key buildings, which is Town Hall, Community Services, or Cashby Community Center, and both arenas, and the Information Center. Now we're going to do the remainder of our facilities. We'll also look at carrying out major construction projects, so completing the OPP permanent facility and a possible expansion at 68 Michaud, where our health center is located. The last bullet refers to significant reduction in revenues, obviously due to the past year, and the pandemic obviously has impacted our budget dramatically. Councillor Lees has her hand up, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I can't
it's
see
just-
when
no.
we have the screen.
I know, excuse me, it's just that I think it would be more easy to understand and to follow, Stefan, if you go like we did with the previously, we start with revenue and you go heading by heading, and then if we have question under, for example, revenue, we ask and you go forward, then talking about everything, and after that getting lost with the question.
Okay, I was
But if
just
you don't
highlighting,
mind,
Councillor, I was just highlighting the 2021 budget highlights, the bullet points
Yeah.
just above. Now we'll go into going through the line items, starting with our revenue. So if I may, Madam Mayor, I will jump right
Mention.
into revenues. Looking at 2021, I'm going to focus on the budget lines that's being proposed for 2021. 2020, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. But as you're aware, most, if not all, line items have been affected some way, somehow by the pandemic. So I'll put my focus on 2021 budget proposed. Revenue is based on grants that we normally will receive for summer students. Last year, as you recall, the federal government did pay 100% of all students that we basically hired, all summer students. But we've earmarked, because we don't at this time know for sure if the government will be paying full wage subsidies for summer students, so we've allocated budget on that. Arenas revenues have dropped drastically, and so the numbers for 2021 have been reflected. Canteen sales is all attributed to our marina revenue. So we look at gas sales and we look at slip rentals and whatnot. So obviously last year the boating season was a success, and numbers reflect that. The remainder of revenue is essentially based on programs pertaining to pool, fitness centers, so memberships, along with advertising. Advertising revenue is generally tied to our local junior A hockey club. They didn't have a season last year, so we did not get any revenue. So we've allotted a smaller amount moving forward in 2021. Rentals are tied mostly to hall rentals, which we've had very little, and tied to our leasing agreements that we have with our various tenants. COVID relief fund, again, is money that we're receiving from government that we will apply to the community services revenue stream to offset a lot of the losses that we've seen through this pandemic. Madam Mayor, can I ask if there are any questions on revenue?
Okay, are there any questions? I can't see Stefan because of the screen, sorry.
I could just ask a quick question.
Okay, Conseil Chris?
So could you just run us through, like, I realize this is a difficult year and we can't really, it's very difficult to get a gauge of what's going on. But if you could just run us through, I don't really want to use the word normal, but in a normal year, could we just break down what our revenue would be, sort of arenas, community center, big chunks of revenue, and where we, I guess where we lost the most and where we think we're going, because I guess we really, it's a guess. I assume it's a really big guess. We're hoping for a return to normal, and that's going to obviously sort of come in at slowly. I would imagine. So just kind of where our revenues come from, what they are. I guess the year before last would be
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe just the first part to your question pertaining to actual numbers, so we have an idea of what normalcy would be. Probably would be your 2020 budget line items that we had forecasted for the season. However, the actuals are a big reflection of the impact of COVID on the operation. So would it be fair, maybe Stefan, just very quickly with arenas, last year our budget was forecasted for 158, this year 68,000. That would represent what, 68,000 for both arenas? Like what would be the startup time? How many months?
So Madam Mayor, even those numbers are reduced COVID numbers. So what you see as budgeted, if you recall, when the pandemic hit, we went back to our budgets in April, and we made revenue assumptions based on lost revenue. So those aren't even the accurate numbers. So to Councillor Fisher's point, I've got my 2020 guidebook out here from last year, and I'm looking at 2019 actual numbers. If you will allow me, I can run through those numbers. So to give everyone an idea, in 2009,
remember the 2019 budget is the book you have does not have the finals in it. If you're looking at the workbook from last year,
okay, I'm looking at actuals, because I was just going to say generally on a normal year, I think our revenues are around $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, Elisa. So that gives you an order of magnitude. We generally, the Community Services Department generally brings in about roughly, like I said, $1 million in revenue. And this year we're looking at a projected number of 731. So you can divide that up from arena rentals to hall rentals, which we've seen a significant reduction. We've seen a reduction in membership, pool revenue. We've also seen a reduction in, it just escaped me, but I don't know if that kind of answers Councillor Fisher. If we're looking at roughly $270,000 of lost revenue, or that's even more because we're adding 148,000. So our revenue basically has dropped by close to 55% because of the pandemic, and that's spread out over a variety of different line items.
If I may, through the chair, yeah, that kind of answers it. I just trying to understand. You know, I realize it's going to be this year. We're going to hopefully we're building back to normal. I just want to understand, like, from the baseline, the assumptions for revenue that you have this year, and just generally speaking, just so you're ready. I want to understand how much things cost us versus the revenue, and then specifically, I want to understand how much arenas cost versus their revenue, how much the information center costs versus its revenue, how much the museum costs versus its revenue, and obviously, you know, I want, from the point of view of pre-pandemic, what would be expected without a pandemic and what's expected in the future is kind of my questions. But yeah, you've answered that. Thank you.
Okay. And very quickly, okay, Conseil Alice.
Just a question, because you're talking about rental and budget 2020, Stéphane, you had the projected $390,000 and we got 353, almost 354. How come the rental was so high?
Some of our tenants, because of COVID,
Okay.
if we close some of our facilities down, Councillor, they weren't allowed into their space, so we weren't charging rent for certain months. So there's a reduction in revenue because of that. So we're anticipating a full, not a full year, because we're already mid-March, and we're just reopening some of our facilities, but we should be able to recapture some of our commercial leases.
But my point is, I thought that it was not a big difference, because everything else, it's major difference, and you don't have 55% less in revenue for the rental. Are they paying for the rental of Marcel Noël's room for the COVID assessment room, or whatever you call it?
There's no rental fee at all, because we're a partner. It's a community. It's a service we're offering to our community. But we were fortunate that some of our tenants, Councillor, includes the federal government, the provincial government, and they've paid throughout the pandemic their lease agreements.
Okay, so you're talking about all the facility. You're not just talking about, okay, well, then
it's
okay.
rent. It's rent coming in from
Okay.
leasing our facilities. Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking maybe just recreational, which for me did not make sense. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Got
Sorry.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In line with Conseil Chris, when we put down a budget for the arenas of 60,000, the time that the arena stayed open, but we weren't able to use it, and it was identified $8,000 a week, because it's 4,000 for each arena. Did that qualify for COVID relief funding?
On the lost revenue part?
On the fact that the cost to maintain the arenas open and not being accessible to the public due to the lockdown. By the time, so initially when council was provided an update pertaining to the cost to operate each arena, was $4,000 per week per arena. So we had quite a few weeks that we were maintaining the ice with no usage. So I'm just curious if that portion qualifies for COVID relief. And I see that Alyssa has her hand up regarding that.
Oh, lost revenue due to shutdown does qualify. The 148 that you see in Community Services 2021 budget was the rest of the COVID relief funding that we had received last year. That was it. That was all. So it wasn't a matter of, do these extra things count, because there simply wasn't any extra COVID relief funding available. We all got that notice last week about the province allowing some additional COVID relief into 2021. So we are receiving additional funds this year that's not incorporated into that. But certainly all of the lost revenue from the $1 million to where we are right now counts as COVID relief.
Okay, but can we also count it towards the operational cost? Or
It's
is it
6 to 1.
just-
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
thank you. That's
Yep.
what I want to find out.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions pertaining to revenues? None? Okay, so we'll move on to the expenditure portion.
Okay, looking at HR costs, no new positions are being added this year to the department. What we are looking at as far as adjustments, we are seeing we did assume not assume, but we did budget for a reduction of part-time staffing costs for part-time maintenance, lifeguards and clerks, because obviously most of these positions have not been active for the first quarter in 2021, with most of our facilities being shut down. I do want to highlight the fact that we do have 3 full-time positions that are in the salaries and wages that need to be filled in 2021. One being the museum manager, one being the museum assistant, and the other vacant position is a position that council approved last year with the addition of a community development officer. Because of the pandemic and everything that was happening, we did not fill that position last year, but it is our intention to move forward with that pending council's direction on that. So the benefits in the education portion are adjusted accordingly. You'll see an increase in the education and training side. We do have mandatory training for our maintenance staff and whatnot. There's health and safety recertification that need to be included with that. And in addition, the increase is due to having new staff on board and having training opportunities for staff, for the new staff coming on board. Did we want to pause, Madam Mayor, and go through questions on this before we go into the operating portion?
I think we should. I think it's,
You're on mute, Madam Mayor.
We should, if we can just revert the screen. Thank you, Conseillère Lise.
okay, about HR. So if I understand correctly, there's 3 positions that's part of the 1,589,556, Stefan?
Correct.
Okay, and may I ask a question about the coordinator, just a clarification, since we're gonna have the review done, so that have nothing to do with the review that it was postponed to be hired, like I don't know?
No.
Okay, that's my question for the expenditure, HR.
Councillor Chris.
So I guess I have a general question, perhaps for Elisa or Jay, and that would be sort of these HR expenditures just naturally rise, cost of living, and it's in the negotiated contracts, and so they the big picture, they tend to go up. Would be one question. What percentage is that this year is one question, but I'll just ask my next question would be of I think of Steph, but okay, so I understand there's been some talk about arenas and COVID vaccines. I'm just wondering, are we doing it at the arena because it's central? Could we do it at the museum? What are the plans for the museum? Is the museum open this year? Or is it going to be open later this year? And again, big picture, can you just give me a little bit more information about the museum site? How much acreage is at the museum that we own? And how much is that property worth? Maybe you don't know, maybe we need an assessment, but how much is that property worth? Because my understanding is that's probably prime real estate. Thank you.
That was 17 questions in one question.
You're welcome.
I counted 17. So the first question on the HR, if I was listening, because I heard my name and then I heard Elisa's name. So yes, our majority of our workforce is unionized, and the administrative follow the same increases. This year, I believe it's what, 1.75, Elisa? Yeah, so our collective agreement says that that's 1.75. So all of your HR expenses, your benefits that go with it, tend to increase accordingly. With respect to the museum, that's an entirely different physical or debate, strategic debate. I don't know if and when, Steph, we want to have a discussion about the museum, because it is an animal and an operation into itself, eh, Steph?
Yes, so
Did not warrant a discussion on the museum as the agenda item at a future agenda?
I think so, yeah.
Because we're looking at logistics, pertaining to cost of operation. According to Councillor Chris, the actual site, the maintenance, the upkeeping, HR matter, the fact that it's been closed, the fact that it's not staffed, there's quite a big picture involved in that discussion.
So I guess, not to chair, but if there's consensus from council that we bring it to a meeting, does everybody?
Well, that's what I was going to say, is there
Thanks.
concurrency that we bring that forward
Yeah.
in the
Thank you,
near
Your Worship.
future?
Yeah, and they said
Okay.
yes. So, and soon, it will be there sooner than later. So,
Okay. So was that all the answers to the 17th question of Councillor Chris?
Much.
Yeah, thank you. As long as I get some specifics on the museum later, that's great. I think I asked cost for the information center as well. What's it cost us to keep that sucker open, approximately?
Well, it's not a SUCKER. It's an infrastructure and asset that we do own. But yeah, that would also be under facilities. So is there concurrency that the information center also be brought forward in the near future so we can have those discussions?
Your Worship, that one would be a little bit different. I think we should all look at our facilities and the pro and cons as to what you want to do with them, for sure. But in order to just answer a simple question like that, I think that if we don't have that answer right now, we can certainly bring it back. In an order of magnitude, the operating cost for the tourism center is approximately 50 to 55,000. I could be off, plus or minus 10. But we'll bring you the exact number with that, and that should include the HR costs as well. So there's heat, hydro, and the labor to clean it. So we will bring you a specific number back so you can assess that with everything else. Unless, Steph, you already have that number?
I don't offhand, but we can provide more details, and I guess that could be part of council's overall discussion regarding.
I think Elisa can probably pull it up even while you're continuing your presentation.
Are there any other questions pertaining to HR, Conseiller Dan?
I think in that 17 questions that Councillor Fisher asked, he asked another question pertaining to the having the vaccination center at the recreation center. I think that's what you were talking about, or you were asking whether it should be at the arenas or whether it was. You floated that.
But the only reason I didn't answer that question at this point is because it's not really budgetary. We were told that when it comes to the assessment center and also the vaccination site, that basically is part of our contribution as a municipality managing the pandemic. So are there plans for other locations? Yeah, there is. But overall, it doesn't factor into the budget that we're discussing today. Is that correct, Jay?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's budgetary in the sense that there's an opportunity cost to having your sites on places that we can't use for other purposes. Even if we decide to unlock the world, we'd still be testing and so on. So your Marcel Noel Center is tied up. So maybe with your indulgence, I'll just answer that question. And the question is that there were a set of criteria when the pandemic started as to what was an acceptable location that was near a hospital, couldn't be on a hospital, was accessible, and was open to having the type of surfaces that could be cleaned easily and disinfected easily. And so the staff with all of our partners worked around and came up with that was our best solution with that. With respect to the arenas, the answer as a generality is mass vaccinations take a lot of space, and most municipalities are using those wide open spaces such as unused arenas for that purpose. So that's my general answer. And just if it has a budgetary impact.
Councillor Chris?
Sorry, I'm getting off topic, but I just want to, so this is Marcel Noel Hall or the arena, and this vaccination and the impact on the pool. We are not opening the pool. I'm really sorry. I just want to understand a little bit better what how thinking around this. So pool open or close this year, that kind of thing. Thank you.
So while we are using the Marcel Noel Hall, is the initial plan. While we are using the Marcel Noel Hall, which is next week for 80, either let's call it 79 to 79 plus, if you're turning 80 this year. The plan, because there's about 750 folks minus the people already vaccinated at the homes for the aged, the plan is that the easiest site for us is to continue using the Marcel Noel Hall. Because we're using the Marcel Noel Hall, it has an impact on adjacent services that we don't want them co-mingling in terms of parking, waiting outside, this, that, and the other thing. So it's a traffic management thing. When we go to the mass vaccinations and use the arenas, to be honest, we haven't contemplated what that does to our co-location, but right now the decision was made to keep it shut just for the short term, Chris. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions pertaining to HR? I did have one question, Stefan. The new position for community coordinator, can you just provide highlight again? What was the task or the reason why this new position was agreed upon last year by some members of council?
So originally, this position was tied to a staff person that was then reallocated to the museum on a full-time continuous basis. So council made a decision to allocate full-time resources for the operation of the museum, which left a vacancy within the department. And there's a need for us to have a community development officer. We have one currently, but that position is also tied to the day-to-day management of our recreation facility and our hall rentals and whatnot. So we had nobody to basically do outreach, to work with our community organizations, our not-for-profit groups and whatnot. So council agreed to have that position become available in the fourth quarter of 2020 on a cost-saving measure. We did not proceed and post for this position because of pandemic and the fact that we were essentially shut down. Moving forward, we felt that it was best to wait for 2021 for things to get back to quasi-normalcy, and because consultations are very limited right now and dealing with our organization. So this is why that position was created, and council supported it last year.
Okay, and do we foresee that we're going to be hiring this new position in the near future, or are we going to be waiting until there's some type of normalcy where the individual is going to be able to work with community groups and outreach? Because I was going to say right now we're already in the month of March. We haven't hired someone, we haven't posted. So probably the wages for that one position could be estimated 6 months out of 12 months.
Yeah, that goes for all of our vacancies currently. There are key positions within the department. And before we put on a hiring strategy and actually actively recruit, I guess it'd be prudent to wait for council's direction on budget and whatnot. As we'll go through the economic development budget, there's another key position that's being incorporated within that budget. So there's some significant positions and hiring practices that we'll need to kickstart sooner than later to get these positions in place, have the new people trained and ready to get going once the pandemic kind of starts
Okay.
to slow down.
So I guess the reason I'm just bringing it up is that automatically that could be perceived, well, it would be savings in the actual numbers that have been identified in 2021. Because if we don't have the new people on deck until 6 months out of the year, that means there's 6 months of savings in wages.
I see where I see. Yeah. I understand your question,
So
but
I just, yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. There are going to be savings, obviously, if these bodies aren't in the positions. However, if we cut back on the HR line, it will affect next year's budget even more so.
Oh, I hate to burst your bubble even, Steph, but the museum positions are already considered in this budget as only being mid-year hire, 6 months hire.
Okay.
The community coordinator is also already estimated as a mid-year hire as well. So we've already taken those into consideration. There might be a little bit of tweaking there between a mid Q2 and an end Q2 hire on the community coordinator, but the other ones are already the vacant positions are already consumed as a Q3 hire.
Okay, that answers the subject matter. Thank you. I'll proceed avec operating cost if there's no further questions with HR matters, and I'll pass it back to you, Stéphane.
Okay, starting from the top, I'll just from cost of goods sold, that is basically directly related to gas sales at our marina. And we see a somewhat reduction in that. Again, it's difficult to know. Last year was it was a shortened boating season, but it was a very successful boating season, and we've estimated somewhat the budget to be slightly different this year moving forward.
Could I have the page number on that one, please?
Page 30, Councillor Millette.
Okay, thank you.
Other material changes in operating costs are pertaining to community initiatives. So community initiatives, we could call it something else. Basically, what that line item is what council agrees to as far as free hall rentals or whatnot, like write-offs. Contributions from council, we account those and they become part of our overall budget. And that's why that line item with not much happening within our halls last year, that numbers has been reduced drastically. Community projects, we see an increase in that. And the community projects basically consists of what we do as far as beautification in various of our communities throughout West Nipissing. We look at flags, we look at banners, we look at purchasing of garbage cans. So supporting the downtown Sturgeon Falls Beautification Group is also included. So their request of 20,000 is included in that. Then we're looking at beautification projects for flowers and mulch and whatnot throughout our various communities. Part of that budget also includes our community events. So Kids Safe Halloween, Parade of Lights, our fireworks display for Canada Day and whatnot. And there's also this year an additional project within that envelope for the Sturgeon Falls welcome sign. I know there's been discussion around that. We did do the welcome signs in various communities a couple years back. Sturgeon Falls had not received the sign. Council had indicated that it would be advisable to proceed with that. We did not in 2020, but we've included some budget in 2021 to get that done. I see, Madam Mayor, that Councillor Lees has her hand up.
Okay, can we go back?
Well, you can
Well,
finish as
Sally?
long, okay, well, you want to finish and I'll talk, you want to finish that section, but I don't want to miss my turn.
Okay, you mean, okay, so we're gonna walk through the remaining of the operational costs. We'll let Stefan go through it and then we'll come back.
To me.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, again, through you, Madam Mayor, we see a significant increase in general insurance. I think there's been articles in various media highlighting the fact that I don't think we're the only ones, but insurance costs are in fact going up. Other material changes, you'll see 60,000 under professional fees. Nearly the entirety of that budget line is dedicated to the completion of our building condition assessment reports and our asset management plan. So again, we need to bring in some engineering consultants to go through all of our buildings and provide to us an overview of our building condition and provide us all the information we need to compile our asset management plan, which is a key component of what we need to get done in 2021. The repairs and maintenance budget obviously remains as such as last year. Even though we were underspent, we have to assume that we're going back to regular business and moving forward that way. Services and rents. I just lost my page here. Yeah, on the services and rents, that includes most of our regular contracts that we have, such as mat rentals and whatnot. We're seeing an increase this year. There's pest control, there's elevator service contracts in there, and just to name a few. We're seeing an increase in there is basically for additional services we're going to need for lease management or lease administration. We're getting into lease renewals, lease renegotiations, and we're going to bring in some commercial leasing expertise to assist us with that. There's obviously a cost to that, and that's to make sure that moving forward, our lease agreements are vetted, they're looked at, and professional support is provided to these. Utilities and telecom is basically, there's a reduction. I think part and parcel of that is we've seen a reduction in hydro because of a lot of our facilities being underutilized or closed, and that's reflected in this as well. And the other couple line items, there's no material changes to them. We're maintaining the same line item costs as previous years.
What would be the non-TCA expense?
So Lisa, help me out with that one. I also often, but those are items that aren't depreciable or depreciated. And so we basically account for them as one-offs, and they don't become part of our asset management or our fleet management pool.
You got it, Steph.
I got a good one for TCA, tender care allowance.
Tender care
Allowance.
allowance. Oh, okay. Okay, Kosialis, I know that you had your hand up.
So bear with me. I think it's going to be, I've been looking at it, and I know, Stefan, you gave a difference between community initiative and community project. So I would have a small request that obviously can after by the chair to make sure to see if council will concur with that, obviously. But I would like to have some list that define because, and maybe the amount, because a lot of people, and I'm saying a lot of people, and especially lately because they're talking about beautification, they're saying, oh, okay, what is the municipality? The municipality don't contribute enough in the community and blah, blah, blah. It would be nice to have very straightforward, something like Alicia provide us with the grant, name of the nonprofit we're supporting and how much money per year. And just so when people ask, we can say, you know, there's a list of, there's a lot of things that we are contributing in our municipality and trying to help people and also in kind. So, and there's a lot of volunteer work going on in our municipality. So that's the first thing. The second one, I want to bring the beautification, Sturgeon Fall beautification in it. And my question, Stefan, and I'm sure they were prepared, you must have that. What is the cost of the garbage can that they had proposed? Do you have an idea on top of your head?
Yeah, so as per the presentation made to council probably several weeks or a couple months ago from the Sturgeon Falls Beautification, what they were proposing was to buy $20,000 worth of garbage cans to be placed along King Street in Sturgeon Falls. Like those garbage cans are the heavy gauge steel black garbage cans that you can see in other municipalities, and that what was proposed for this year. It's one line item. It's all related to garbage receptacles.
Okay, so I do have thought about that. And first of all, I want to say that thank you for all the people that took the time to write to all of us, and some to just individual and talk about the Sturgeon Falls beautification, because I always did support the Sturgeon Falls beautification, and I keep on want to do it, I should say. So, but the garbage can, I am looking at that, and I think the garbage can should be a capital project, because if we look in the past in 2019 or 2020, lampposts were part of capital project. Chair and table for the museum were part of so because people, it should not be mixed with the operation. That's very clear. So, and I know that I'm not saying we should be doing that, because I would ask the chair after that to concur, but I would like to see that $20,000 change from operation and put in capital. On top of that, I would like to ask if we cannot have to finish the street with the lamp posts on top of the garbage can. I think it's time that we finish the main drag, the beautification in town, but it should be capital for different reason. I think capital projects should be handled by staff, because staff, and we have policy to follow, and I'm pretty sure that it's what's been done, but to be separated for that. And that's when it comes to the point that I don't know how much the lamppost would cost, but we have an envelope of money of $34,000 that's in the reserve that this year can contribute to that. And the difference, because I'm sure there might be a few difference, because the lamp are pretty expensive, I think it would be that we can take it. There's a little bit of money left for the IPM, which I think, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, that could be used towards that. I think there's a balance of 13 something to be on your grant sheet that you said that could be carried to 2021. So I'm pretty sure with those amounts that we can cover all of that. And I think it would be worth the while for to finish that worthwhile project and once and for all. And it is capital project, okay? What I would like to see in operation, and it's what we saw long time ago, and we can call it maybe by itself West Nipissing beautification. But example, if they need flowers, if they need mulch, they need to be purchased, and that would be all the community would have access. Say Cashby wants to do something or feel some flowers where their community lot or building that belongs to the municipality, they would have access to that. And in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Lynn was in charge of looking to that. If they needed something, few item, Stefan?
He still is.
It still is. There you go. So in all, I think we have a way this year to make a big difference. I think it would not cost much. The money is there. I'm not saying that it's free, but I mean, it would be used productively. And this is why I asked the question at the beginning, if that money, that 34 something, almost $35,000 was contributed by people around the core, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, which the majority was, I think. And I think we would finish completely the downtown core, and the beautiful, the people, the volunteer for the Sturgeon Falls beautification can keep on doing their wonderful work they're doing to make sure that it looks good, that everything is great, and they will have access if they need to buy flowers like the rest of the community. So But I know I cannot make the decision on myself, but I would like to ask the
Okay,
chair after conversation, of course. I'm just saying, I don't want it to get lost. There's a few things that have to be approved by everybody, but that's my thought.
okay.
Because, no, I'm not finished, because I don't feel that I can vote on supporting operation mixed with capital.
Okay, thank you, Conseil Elise. I was going to say that it's like sort of a Conseil Chris a while ago where it's a 17 portion question.
Well, it's not
And
question, it's
and there's comments, but I think the first thing that I heard is probably two reports, community initiatives. I'm trying to locate Stefan here on the screen. Oh, okay. Those are sort of the write-offs that we provided to either not-for-profit groups or organizations that came to council and that council agreed to get the halls free of charge.
Right, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that we haven't had much activity this year with that, but in the previous year, we would get a list of exactly what we gave to whom. So there was a dollar value tied to it, but I know COVID, very different. Probably I can just think of one organization that we've allowed the hall before all of COVID started, and that was the community kitchen as an example. And I guess I'm not too sure if there's other examples, but if there are others, is it possible that we get a list of those?
Yeah, I think that's very much doable.
Okay.
I think we've done that in the past as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, the other issue that I heard is the community projects. Maybe to Alyssa, when we do buy assets of the municipality, and I'm bringing this up because Conseil Elise brought it up, like tables, chairs, garbage cans, and so on, are those deemed to be capital assets?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I guess what I've heard here at this point, not the objection about subsidizing the $20,000 for beautification, but is to make sure that capital assets, who concurs amongst council that we, yes, Alyssa?
I was just gonna say, yeah, things like tables and chairs are capital assets because of lifespan. I'm not sure that we've captured garbage cans ever as a capital asset or the tracking and the lifespan of that. So just absolutely, we have done things like the lamp posts and those as capital assets. Garbage cans are not quite the same.
Well, I do know historically through capital budget, I remember council of the day debating about removing garbage cans under, not subsidizing that project under capital assets. And I would make the assumption that if we're investing $20,000 in 13 garbage cans, that they probably have a lifespan that would be, I'm not too sure what they are. What's the lifespan? But I guess
I think there's accounting practices and procedures as to what is depreciable and what isn't depreciable. And typically that is a treasurer function. So Elisa, would the fact that you buy 100 garbage cans or one garbage can, is a garbage can out in the community depreciable? I think it's depreciable depending on the type of garbage can that you're buying, right? If you're buying those big fixed structures or whatever, that's kind of like a massive asset. But that's a question more for Elisa to decide how she classifies in whether it be an operating item or a capital item. Has to do with its depreciability. Elisa, is that about accurate?
Yeah, and there is sometimes some confusion between things that we call capital projects and things that actually get treated as capital at the end of the year. They don't always line up. I strive to keep the departments sort of lined up with that, but they don't always line up. Some of it stays. So that's correct, though, Jay. It does depend on what it is. Yeah.
okay, but if I summarize correctly, what I'm hearing is that they may not be a project, but they're still capital, and whatever the lifespan, depending on the acquisition of the item, they can and they are probably considered to be capital. And what's the lifespan? Well, I don't know, because I guess the lifespan varies depending on the type of garbage that's being purchased. Is that correct to make that assumption?
Well, yeah, so you kind of went full circle. I think that depending on what the, working with the beautification committee, what they have in mind will determine whether Elisa reclassifies something as capital or operations, and she does that mid-year for quite a few things. I think that it doesn't change the fact that the expenditure level would remain the same. It's just a matter of attribution, accounting attribution. And so Elisa makes a bunch of journal entries throughout the year to accommodate those philosophies, depending on what the actual expenditure was at the end of the day.
Okay, Conseiller Chris.
Okay, I have some notes here, so I hope you have your pens out because I'm going to ask a few questions. I guess first off, I want to agree with Lee's about beautification and the lampposts. I seem to remember that the lamps were 100K or somewhere to finish that street, and I'm wondering if we can't put that into reserve, but that's a question for later. So beautification, Lise did also mention outlying groups, and you know, we got more emails about supporting the sturgeon beautification emails and correspondence than probably anything else since I've been on council. So there's a big appetite for it, but I just want to remind everybody that we do have outlying areas in River Valley. There's a group. There's been a group in Field, the Fields Beautification Committee, since I've lived here, and I know Levine as well has a very active group, and so does Verna. So I would like to see beautification. Obviously, let's give the $20,000, whatever they're asking for in Sturgeon, but I'd really like to see that the appropriate sort of prorated amount that other groups can access as well. So I think we should be talking about $40,000 or somewhere in there. I let the accountants do that. But you know, the Field Beautification Committee, I can only speak locally, that's sort of that was active, and it's been on hold because we're in a pandemic, and I fully expect them to sort of race back to life. And I would hate for them to come back to life and there's no funds that they can access. So that's one thing. The lampposts, I would like to see that maybe done over time. So maybe we need to contribute more to reserve, because that's definitely a job in downtown Sturgeon that needs to be done. The other thing downtown is I when I was a teenager, I actually worked on street trees, and I'd like to see an inexpensive study of the street trees we've got downtown, you know, the life cycle and what should go where and that kind of thing. Because I know that a couple of our older trees downtown are dying and they'll need replacing. So that's that. So should I carry on, because I have notes? That's just my first part of the question.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll hand it back to you after, Conseiller Chris. But what I'm hearing right now is, with the budget line of 70,000, I think we need a breakdown. We need a breakdown of how much is going for the garbage can, how much is going for other initiatives. And then this way it's going to help us to have that discussion. I also heard that when it comes to assets, recommendation is that the assets are managed by administration and not by volunteers. I also heard so far that there's the blessing for the beautification group and that everyone wants to support the group. It's just the accounting portion. So maybe to start off with, is it reasonable to say that we're going to get an entire list of everything? Because I think we need to define part of operation, how much is dedicated to beautification initiatives, i.e. flowers, mulch, and so on. And what's the formula for all of West Nipissing? Because I'm hearing that it's sturgeon in all outlying areas. So we need to have a number, and we need to know how that number is allocated per community. And then for the 20 garbage can, I guess I'm going to ask the question to council. Does council concur with the $20,000 worth of metal garbage can that was requested by the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Group, that is moved forward to assets, and that budget is managed by administration and not by volunteers? When it comes to assets, acquisitions of goods for the municipality, should it be left to the discretion of volunteer groups? I guess that's what I've heard from Conseillère Lise. Would that be correct, Conseillère Lise?
Well, I just, what I was saying, that I agree with that, it's $20,000. I did not know the amount, exact amount of that the exact amount for the garbage can. So Stéphane said it's around $20,000. So I'm sure that $20,000 garbage can for 13, don't know much about lifespan, but it's chair can be put as asset. I think garbage can be put. So I'm asking, and I support it to be put before we vote in capital, because that's where they belong. In my, I mean, when I'm looking in the past year and where everything else has been put, because I think it's, we don't want to open a can of worm also that we're going to have tons of requests at some point of time about we need this and we need that. I think it should be dealt with capital, and at budget time, we decide if you want. And I'm saying that this is what and I think I cannot vote it by myself, but I have the right to ask. And like Jay said it so many times, council need to concur on that, and that's my request. So if they don't concur, I will obviously go with the flow. So that's my question. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so I'm just going to go with the hands that were up and then ask the question after. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Leo.
Okay, so I'm sorry because I have a whole bunch of different topic questions. So but I guess I should stick to beautification right now. So I guess my position, I understand what Lisa's saying, but my position really would be if garbage cans are capital, if they're taken care of by the municipality, or my position would be to leave that to staff. That's kind of a staff call to me, like whatever makes sense. And so that's my position on that. Should I stop and talk about my other things later?
Well, I think we should.
Well, it depends how many things that you have to speak of.
I have the marina, I have community
Okay.
events, I have utilities, I have things.
Okay. So.
Okay, well, you know what? How about we focus on community projects and then we do a roundtable for the other issues, so we can focus on dealing with the issues right now pertaining to initiatives and projects.
Okay, so I just want to mention that I don't want, because these brought it up and I don't want to lose it because I had it in my notes, and I just want to make sure that the rest of the lights on King Street, we either agree or we disagree, that we're
I've taken a note in regards to that. We'll be able to discuss that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Conseiller Dan?
First and foremost, the request that the Sturgeon Beautification put in place was for the garbage cans, and that's $20,000. There is no transfer of money whatsoever to the Sturgeon Beautification Group. It is recommended, and it's Lynn that manages that budget for them. They're long-term, that's a long-term thing. They'll be there for years. They have them in North Bay. They'll match the lamp posts. So I think it's a good idea. Now, in regards to Councillor Lisa's comment in regards to flowers and mulches and all that, Sturgeon Beautification is not asking for that right now. They have adequate flowers. They have adequate mulch right now. They're not asking that part of the budget. So that, just to clarify that. In regards to the lampposts, if you're going to do them, I was advised that, first of all, that they're not properly wired for that part of the street. So there is no wiring. So they'll have to be not on the grid. They'll have to be off the grid. So that's going to ensure, it's going to cost a little bit of more money. But the thing is that we should get it done as soon as possible. And I agree with both Councillor Senecal and Councillor Fisher, because to match the ones that we have now. In regards to the proposal that Councillor Fisher put on the table, that there be funds available for groups in outlining area, I totally agree. We should be increasing the budget by perhaps maybe, like you said, Chris, perhaps 5,000 per area. So maybe another, let's say 40,000 or 20,000. So I think the thing is that whether it's in capital or whether it's not in capital, it's in material. It's a group asking to get funds to enable to the community to look good, and that the volunteers have been working hard to keep the community clean. And this will just add to the professionalism that our house, our community looks like. It's the old saying: if you look good, you feel good. So that's my comments in regards to the comments.
Alice?
Well, and you know what? This is what I said, if we're doing like that, then we should put capital and operation at the same time, because capital is capital, it's tangible, it's something, and operation is operation. So I'm not asking big, I support it, I want it. And even I have an option that it won't be nothing on our tax, because we have money that's sitting there. And I'm sorry, but that belong in contribution from the Ward 1, 2, 3, 4. And I also proposed, when I said that I want something in operation that would support what Chris said. Everybody, every municipality should have access to whatever they need, something for beautification, including West Nipissing. Sturgeon Fall beautification. They might have everything they need, but I remember at some point of time that the flower pot costs at least $1,000 and the flower to put in it. So we're just a bit accessible to everybody. So, and there is a difference. And for me, I don't want to mix it. It's complicated enough to understand operation and capital. And you know what? You're right. We have so many email about beautification. And like I said, I always did. But I did receive email, and I did receive people calling, say, well, okay, but then we are a volunteer for group, and we have many group of volunteers that's doing something. And so can we start asking blah, blah, blah? They're also getting a portion. So just to treat it fair, one. And yes, and I said that in my comment that I'm pretty sure when they did the lamp, for example, I know that Stefan dealt in following a procedure, but it wasn't capital. And just to make sure that it's clear. So what is the difference? Because you know what? I'm going to stand, and I said to people, I support beautification. I want to give the $20,000. And on top of that, I want to do the lamp right now to finish that project once and for all. And okay. I agree, Conseiller Dan. That we won't be able to have the same one. It will be something that would be working. I don't know what you call it, and yes, the more we wait, the more expensive it's going to get. But we have a bunch of money that we can use right now. And I think that $40,000 to put for mulch and flowers, I think that's a very high number, because we never had that before. We had, I think, $10,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stefan, for mulch and flowers for the like Cache Bay, Verner, and Sturgeon Fall at that time when they were asking it. So, I mean,
okay, so I've recorded all of this. I'm just going to let Conseiller Yvon speak and Conseiller Leo. You're on mute, Conseiller Yvon.
Thank you, Madam S. With respect to the garbage cans that they're asking for, they're cast iron material. They're very heavy, and it's not something somebody was going to walk away with. They'll be there forever, as long as I live, and as long as many of you live. So there'll be an asset for sure. As far as capital, I think it should go under capital. I would agree with that. I support their initiatives. They're working hard. They're a good group. So I'm not going to repeat what others said. So in essence, I support what was said. Just that don't forget now. I'm not going to approve the 6.5 budget. So and I'm going to approve less than that. So hopefully we all keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Leo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I agree with the 20,000 with the cap, with the request for garbage cans. And then, yeah, if you want to put more money for the rest of the municipality, beautification, like IE flowers and whatever, and I'm okay with that also. But all they asked was 20,000 for garbage can, and I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay, so what I hear right now is the $20,000 for garbage can. There seemed to be consensus for that based on the request that was received. Now, I think the issue that I've been hearing is should that $20,000 remain in operation?
No.
So who
Not a
is?
vote?
Yes, that's what I'm going to ask. I'm asking direction here from members of council if they concur that the $20,000 for the acquisition of those assets remain in operation.
Whoa.
I would have a question as well before that vote.
I have a question for that before.
Just a second, please. We're not, okay, just to clear the air here, not debating the issue about not giving the 20,000. I just want to clear that up, okay? Because there seemed to be consensus for the 20,000 for the garbage can. It's where the money is going to be within the budget. Conseiller Chris.
So I understand that, but to my mind, we're getting into an accounting issue, and I would want staff's opinion on that, because it's really, you know, gap is the gap. Like there's generally accepted accounting practices, and they are what they are. And whether this is operations or whatever, that would be Elisa's call to my mind. So I would want staff's opinion before I even raised my fingers or talked about it or anything. Thank you.
Okay, but what I've also heard is that we've bought tables, we've bought chairs. And in the past, I do know that part of capital projects and community services also included garbage cans. And that was in the past. So I don't think the accounting has changed that much throughout the years defining what are capital assets. Alyssa?
So I think we're mixing things here too. And so I can tell you that we do not have garbage cans on our capital asset list on our balance sheet at all right now. Our threshold for sending something as a capital asset to our balance sheet is where the group of assets is more than $25,000, which is why tables hits there, because we've got tables in multiple facilities that far exceed $25,000. So that's what our policy is for when we capitalize things. We can still leave special projects that are one-offs into the capital because you want to fund them that way, but it's not where we typically do. It's not what we usually do at all. And so if there were garbage cans in capital 14 years ago, that might be possible. But we don't have capital assets for garbage cans now. If you want to buy $175,000 of garbage cans, we'll talk. And then you have to plan for replacement and have a budget for replacement and all that comes along with it as well. This really looks like an operating expense to me. If council says, no, this is just a one-off special project, never going to do this again, then we can talk about where it belongs and how to fund it. But if you just talk straight garbage cans, it looks operating to me.
Okay, subsequent to that, if those garbage cans are acquired, purchased, and they have a specific lifespan, and it would be council's wish that they are deemed to be assets, and in 10 years from now or 5 years, that whatever needs to be replenished or modified or upgraded or replaced, maybe that's the proper word, would that not be identified more than just a one-off project? Because we are acquiring goods for the municipality. And I think my wish, and I don't know what the wish of other members are, if we have purchased those goods, they become an asset with the expectation that they're going to be maintained and if need be, replaced when they need to be replaced.
So that goes back to the same thing as you know, the question they had to Steph earlier. All of the small tools we have, they are things that we own, but they aren't on our balance sheet. They aren't assets that way. That's that non-taxable capital asset line. So that's where, you know, yes, the municipality purchases all kinds of things, all kinds of things. Not all of it hits our capital budgets, and not all of it hits our balance sheet.
So is it illegal to ask the question to members of council to say, does it stay in operation or go capital? Would it be inappropriate or illegal for council to do the shift in the amount?
It's not illegal, because at the end of the year, I am not moving it to the balance sheet. And so it will stay where it is, and it will be part of our close up, because the fund accounting doesn't exist from an accounting point of view anymore. What we do with this capital stuff doesn't actually follow accounting practices. So at the end of the year, I take everything to accounting practices, and it's going to stay as an expense at the end of the year.
Okay, so from what I hear, it's okay if council recommends to move it from operation to capital.
It's unusual, but it's not illegal.
Okay, that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you. Conseiller Dan?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I've had my hand up for the last 10 minutes. The point being is that what is the difference? I highly recommend that we leave it in operations because it's under the threshold that Lisa explained, and we're just complicating things for nothing.
Conseiller Lise? You're on mute, Conseiller Lise. Can't hear.
So I could ask the same question to you. We're going back and forth, and we all want something. We want the garbage to be approved, and it's not illegal to do it. It's a one-shot deal, and I mean, I think it would answer and goes by what the people that call me and said that they don't think it's fair that we're providing. We're just doing it the way, and it's going to be done, and it's not illegal, and they're going to have the garbage can. So can you please, I think I have the right to request something, put it to a vote like
Okay.
you did at the first, because I mean, it's going on and we're due for a break in about.
Okay, thank you, Conseiller Lise. So I guess I'm going to ask the question, if council concurs that it remains within the operation budget. Show me hands to see who wants that amount to stay within operation. 1, 2, 3, 4. So recommendation would be that it's moved over to capital based on.
No. No.
Madam Mayor, you asked the question for to operational.
No, I've asked the question.
No,
Does council, I will let me rephrase, Conseiller Dan, does council concur that the amount of the $20,000 remain in operation?
Yes.
I saw 4 hands that
Yes.
came up. 4 is not majority, Conseiller Leo. You need 5.
But you can
There-
ask the question backwards. You need to ask the question backwards, because
Oh,
if
well,
you ask
then
the
you
question
will.
backwards, you get the different answer.
You know what? The question is right now, it's
No, your
in
first
operation. It's in operation. Let me chair, Conseiller Dan. The money is in operation. I asked the question, do you want to keep it in operation? 4 hands were up.
I think the question,
So,
procedurally, the question would be, do we move it? And then the answer would be no, because you're asking to, you've asked the question backwards.
you know what? I did not ask the question backward, and I'm not going to get into a debate.
Pass back.
That is the question that Conseiller Lise brought forward. So I think right now, and I'm going to ask a subsequent question. Does everyone agree for the acquisition of the $20,000, the 13 metal garbage can? Can I see a show of hands for that? Everyone's in agreement. Okay, so it means that yes, the $20,000 garbage can will be purchased.
Can we
Conseiller
go for a
Broley?
break, Madam Mayor?
Madam Mayor, thank you. The thing is when you want to change something from the regular way of doing things, the way you ask your question, it has to remain the same as it was before you asked the question. You did not check. I don't know if you do understand, but now your decision, the way you ask it, you're changing the normal procedure. And that's not,
Okay.
and that's not the way to do it.
The whole debate, though, the whole debate that Conseil Alice brought forward was the issue about the acquisition of assets.
It should stay status quo. Because if you don't have majority, it stays status quo. And status quo is the way it's been going on, the way Alice's been doing it.
May we have
Conseil Alice,
You know what? Really, if it would have been the other side, everything would have been perfect. Every time it's defeated, you try to go back and play with the answer. That was very clear. This is what was requested. So what the question was to be asked, do you want to remain the same or you want to change? And 4 of you said yes. You want to remain the same. 4 of us is saying no. And for the same freaking thing. The $20,000 is approved. Thank you.
Conseil
Can we
Alice,
go for a
I'm
break?
just- Yes, Conseil Denis.
Madam Mayor, with all due respect, we did vote and let's carry on. Let's not talk about garbage cans for another 3 hours. Let's move on. We voted. That's it.
Do we have a volunteer to move and second for a 15-minute recess break? Conseil Leo, Conseil Chris. All in agreement? Just a second, we're going to let Mélanie read the resolution. All in favor? I can't hear Mélanie, but I'm assuming that she
can't hear
read
you,
the
Melanie.
resolution.
I can't hear Melanie. It's showing your mic is on, but I can't hear you.
Okay. Okay, so Mélanie, you read the resolution? Yes? Okay, everyone in favor? Carried, 15-minute recess.
Melanie, did you fix your mic?
Nope.
Whoa.
Hold on.
This is a test.
Hang on a second.
Just a reminder, everyone, that we're still live.
Yeah, but we're on break, so it's time to be tested.
That better?
Yep.
That's a little better, yes.
We can hear you, Mel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's bad feedback.
I know. It's still. Test. No. No.
Now, just, I don't think your reading resolutions is required until the end. Just turn your sound off, and I don't know that you'll have any need to have any background noise until the end. Then we'll grin and bear it at the end. But no.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, but there's an echo.
Yeah, Mel, just keep your both of your devices on mute, and then there'll be a bit of an echo when you read the last resolution, but we'll tolerate it at the end. I don't know that your mic needs to be on for a while.
So I guess I'm just waiting for our Director of Community Services to come back. Oh, Stefan is back. Okay, so we're going to proceed from here. Councillor Chris.
With your permission, I just I think we can move on from beautification, and I had a bunch of other questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, continue.
Okay, so I have a question about the marina, because I understand there's a wait list for the marina, and I was there in the summer, and it looks to me like there's plenty of space there and perhaps an opportunity to expand. Am I correct in that assumption, or not? Thank you. That's question one.
So through you, Madam Mayor, there is a waiting list for boat slips. That's correct. As far as room for expansion, we'd have to look at and do some type of analysis to make sure that we're not expanding beyond the demand at the marina. Right now, yes, there is a waiting list, but it's kind of a good problem to have. So it's been work in progress over the last couple of years as far as building up usage of our site. We could look at expansion if that's council's wish, but we would certainly have to look at environmental issues. We'd have to look at costing for docks and how many dock slips would be warranted before coming back to council and providing recommendations on
that. So I would be in favor of looking at that, and I just have one other comment on the point, and I'm sure a lot of boaters will hate me for this, but I am told that actually our slip fee is comparatively quite low. So I would be in favor of looking at the revenue that's coming out of the marine and maximizing the cost. Okay, so I'm just going to go on to my next. I guess I have a comment. Perhaps we can catch it later, because we have in this community stuff here, this sort of community events, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we've been in a pandemic and we've all been locked up. And I personally, because they're not big ticket items, but I think when we all get back together as a community, I think it might be prudent to spend a little extra money on parties, because we have not had parties for a long time. And when we all get stabbed in the arm, so I would personally like to see that those funds upped a little, the parade and Halloween and all those good things towards the end of the year when we can commingle again. I think that would be great. So that's just a comment. Maybe we can save it for later. And then finally, I just want to ask about utilities. So the utilities section is, I forget what it was, about 500,000 or something. But I'm just wondering if that's mostly electricity, and if so, and even if it's heat as well, is there an opportunity there over the long term to further green our community? We've got mostly flat roofs, and can we put solar panels? I'm not saying this year, but we sort of planned for it and start to put money away. So we green our community and save money, whether that be solar panels, geothermal heating for some buildings, that kind of thing, as sort of a strategic direction for the future. Could we consider things like that? Thank you.
If I may just attempt at answering Councillor Fisher's question or comment. We have looked at past opportunities, Councillor, as far as solar panels and whatnot. The Green Energy Act is basically dormant right now, or has been abolished by government. There used to be a number of really good incentives for facilities, municipal or otherwise, to invest in solar, wind, to make their buildings more efficient, where you'd buy in and you'd get into the feed-in tariff, and then that no longer exists. So that being said, though, if it's council's wish, we can always look at efficiencies and look at environmentally friendly ways to either save or improve our energy efficiency for our buildings. That being said, I think that there are less incentives available to us to make this a very attractive proposition, but that's certainly something we can look into if council so wishes.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. I think what I hear right now is between the marina and between solar panels, that would be 2 projects and probably 2 agenda items that would entail further discussion at council pertaining to these new initiatives.
A little extra for community events as well. Can we discuss that later, please?
Community events right now, if you have no objection, by asking our Director of Community Services to give us a breakdown of community initiatives and community projects, what's identified in those budget lines, that's probably going to help us moving forward in defining how much money we want to put into beautification initiatives across West Nipissing. And last year there was a $10,000 budget line for a community celebration. It was removed. I don't know whether or not if it's been put back, but if we have a list, a breakdown of what those projects are, then we're able to look at those numbers and see where we want to go with those numbers. Sounds fair?
It sounds fair. If I may, sorry through you, Madam Chair, I did mention earlier, and I hate to go back to it, but a brief discussion about street trees at some point. I might or might not impact budget. Thank you.
Street trees. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Just, Madam Mayor or Madam Chair, procedurally, Chris or Councillor Fisher's asked for a few things. I just want to ensure again, because it seems to be all over the map and for staff to follow, if we're going back to committee and or getting reports, if you can just ask to ensure that these things are concurred with by a majority of council so that we know. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So is there concurrency? Well, with the project for the marina, the expansion, but there was the issue of the slip fees that Councillor Chris brought up. So would there be concurrency by majority of council that this is brought back to council, or that we need a report, we need to have that discussion pertaining to the fees, because that has a direct impact on the budget. But there'd have to be concurrency by majority of council for this to get additional information so we can continue with that discussion either at council. So I see.
No. I have a
Everybody
question.
said yes, or most of them. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm lost here. Dan is saying no, Jay is saying yes. Yes, no to what?
I'm saying no to the point that what I thought, Chris, you were bringing this to the table, Councillor Chris, you bring this to table just as a hanger on that. In other words, that you'd like to discuss it at another time. So if it's not part of the budget process, it's not part of the budget process. So shouldn't it be brought up as an action, as an item to be discussed at council meeting?
And that's what I said.
No,
however,
you didn't say that.
Okay, so I said, is there concurrency that this be brought back to a future committee meeting. And not sure about the fees, what the fees would have as an impact on our budget. And then I heard Jay say yes. So I know that the project for expansion is a project on its own. What's the
Yeah.
correlation with the fees pertaining to the slip in our budget?
So my issue is strictly as an action item, and what I saw was a majority of hands that concurred with you. I didn't realize that Dan's hand was to mean something else, but I saw Councillor Yvonne's hand, Leo's hand, Councillor Dennis's hand. So I just assume all I want is that quick, yeah, let's go, so that it's not coming from one or the other. You know, Councillor Fisher had all kinds of ideas, and I want to make sure it comes from council. So that one there seems to be, it's going to go to council or to a committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And the issue of the solar panel is not a direct budget impact right now. It's not going to be resolved in the immediate future. And that would be a separate committee discussion on its own. Do we all agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And the issue about the street trees, another project, which I'm asking our Director of Community Services, that's not part of the budget right now. Was there anything budgeted for trees?
I'd have to dive into our operational budget on a line by line, but I know we did extensive maintenance of our downtown trees last year for the downtown core. We did hire a professional arborist company that came in and did regular maintenance on it. We do have an allocated budget item every year dedicated for trees downtown.
Okay, and does that answer Councillor Chris, or maybe Councillor Chris wanted to add something pertaining to that initiative, or if it's operational or a project? Councillor Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I just like, you know, the Little Leaf Linden that's outside of Town Hall is, one of them's on its last legs, and you know, I just because I did it before I noticed these things. So as long as that staff is on it, which apparently they are, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and is there a budget line for community events into projects or initiatives?
There is.
And
we'll have a
if
breakdown, yeah.
there is a budget line, so we'll get that in our report.
It'll be part of the breakdown for the 70,000 that's being proposed for this year. Yes.
Okay, so we're all in agreement that we're going to wait for that report so we can discuss those line items to see whether or not if we want to decrease or increase. Can I have a sense of direction by members of council with a show of hand? Okay, perfect. Now, are there any other questions or comments pertaining to what has been presented so far? I did have a few questions and comments. I wanted to be able to discuss pertaining to the presentation that we got from the Beautification Committee. It was brought to the attention of council, that the fountain was not operationable due to a leak. Before decommissioning the fountain, I, for one, would like to see exactly what's wrong with the fountain, and if it could be repaired, how much would it cost to get it repaired? We don't have a lot of water fountains throughout the municipality of West Nipissing in the many communities of our municipality. We have one in the core downtown, and before giving the direction to decommission that fountain, I'd like to have further information regarding to the status of that fountain. With their conseillers?
Yes, and I do agree with that because I think that's the only community that have a fountain. And if I remember correctly, if my memory served me well, there's Verner that had a clock. And I think that's the only municipality that have a big clock, and it was broken at some point of time. And I think it cost close to $10,000 to be repaired. I think we should do everything because if it's not working, obviously the fountain itself looks pretty good. It's not damaged. It's, I guess, le mécanisme qui l'a fait marcher, l'eau. Il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas correct. Ben, j'aimerais ça qu'on voit aussi faut voir si on peut la réparer. I mean, we've been saying that, and we've been hearing that we start something, and then after that, we put money in it, and then we let it go. And we're talking about a road that we need like step by step to rebuild it and to keep maintaining them. I think what we have right now is a fountain, and see, if it costs obviously $50,000 to repair, well, I might change my mind on that, but we have to see what's the problem.
Thank you. Conseiller Dan?
For Councillor Lees's information, the fountain itself, it leaks. They're running the water from the neighbor to when it was operational. It's sunk, so it would take a lot of money to bring it back up. If you go and have a look at it, when we clean it, you can see that it's sunk completely. It's cracked. It leaks. It's going to cost a substantive amount of money to repair. And I don't even think, if you want to put a figure on it, I can't put a figure because I'm not a professional. I think Johnny could put a figure on it. But what happens also, that thing being used, if you would be part of the group, you notice that place, that fountain is being used as a garbage can. We clean it out more than how we have to. So the reason that the beautification group are coming to us and asking us, can we condemn it, put soil in it, and then put a sculpture on it, is that they're thinking that that would make much more sense than making a total repair that would cost a substantive amount of money. Because they've been looking into it. They've been inquiring about it, and the feedback they've been getting is that it's not feasible to repair it.
Well, that feedback should be shared with members of council as well. Conseiller Lise, Conseiller
Well, that's
Yvon?
exactly, and I'm not saying, Councillor Dan, that I don't agree, because I don't know what the price would be. But I mean, since it's not even part of the budget, I think we can wait to see, what's his name, Jamie?
Johnny.
Johnny come to us and said, you know, it's gotta cost this and that, and then we make a decision, because right now, it's not even part of the budget. So, and that's something that can be done very, very soon, that if we don't repair it, it can be used as what they wanted to use. But before that, because there's people asking a question about that really likes it. And as far as garbage go on, Councillor Dan, there's your group is on the street every day, and people, they throw garbage. They gotta throw it in the middle of the flowers. If I don't think that would change much, but that's my comment.
Just a supplemental to that. Thank you for cutting me off.
Well, just wait to be addressed by the floor, please. Conseiller Yvon, and then you, Conseiller Dan.
Thank you very much. Now, if anybody worked on that the fountain, I did for many years, and Steph will vouch for that. There definitely have to be repairs, but it's not that it's non-repairable. The one thing that we had talked about, Steph and I at that time, is doing something to dress up the fountain with respect to putting an inner fountain in the middle, and the outer circle ground, earth and flowers. And we had talked about that, and it's doable at a reasonable cost, and we still end up with a fountain, actually a better fountain than what we have now. And so that's an idea that we can use with as far as costing and whatnot, but it'd be cheaper than repairing the one that's there if it's that bad. But at the time that I was doing a lot of work on that one, it wasn't really all that bad. It did sink, as Dan had mentioned, but it could be raised. But anyway, costing is a factor. So there's other things we can do with that. If someone wants to maintain a fountain, we can still easily put something in there that will work fairly well. Thank you very much.
So I guess the question to Stéphane, if Johnny has been working on the fountain and there's been dialogue between volunteer group with one of our municipal employees, can this information be shared to all members of council so we can make a decision moving forward based on the request that we got and based on infrastructure that we own?
I do have information, Madam Mayor, to share with you. It's an ongoing situation. We are looking into it, and it's no different than, you know, if we're going to repair the fountain versus repairing a leaking roof on one of our buildings, right? So and as part of our ongoing repair and maintenance budget, we do have money to fix things that are broken. To Councillor Yvon's point, he certainly knows that fountain very well. We have done repairs over the years on that fountain, but now we're encountering issues that require more attention and probably more investigation before we can really determine the cost of repairing or decommissioning it. So to that point, we did have past issues because of pumps. Pumps were changed. Now the unit itself is leaking. It's not keeping its water. And there's erosion underneath the fountain as well that's causing it to actually sink. Without further investigation, it's impossible for us to determine what exactly is the cause and what it's going to cost to fix it. As most of council is aware, that our fountain is connected to a private building, which we have no formal agreement with the property owner at this time. So we'd have to really look moving forward to have a proper agreement with the building owner, because we are pulling water from that building. They have to turn the tap on and off in the spring and in the fall. Johnny has had discussion with the beautification group. That is only one option. So the beautification group were saying if the fountain would be decommissioned, if we're not going to use it as an actual fountain, don't tear it apart. Just take the top section off and use the bottom base to put a sculpture on. So it'd still be something eye-pleasing to look at. So they're asking, if we're going to decommission it, don't tear it all down. They can still use it for something else. Another option would be, if we were going to decommission it and not use it for a sculpture, would be to dismantle the entire fountain and fix the landscaping and the interlocking brick at the bottom. And the third option would be, I think Johnny's suggesting that we invest $3,500 as an option to excavate and to really have a look at what's happening underneath that fountain. Why is it leaking? Why is it eroding? And why is it sinking? Before we can have a game plan and a recommendation to say it's going to cost X amount of dollars to actually fix it, so that we can continue using it as a fountain. So those are the options that we're faced with right now.
Okay, and when are those options going to be brought to council?
So again, because we've had the Sturgeon Falls beautification involvement in that area, and they've absolutely done a fantastic job at maintaining that section. If they have a use for the base of the fountain for their special project to have a structure put in place there, I guess it would be council's direction that we would follow, whether we want to further investigate if it's council's wish to continue using it as an actual fountain, or if we just want to proceed and just dismantle the top portion and accommodate the project for the beautification group.
So if it's $3,500 to look underneath to see what the problem is, and if we have that in our operational budget, is that the question that should be directed to council to find out if they agree first to look at the operational maintenance line, the $3,500, to determine what needs to get done pertaining to remedial to the fountain?
Yeah, if it's council's wish that you'd like to at least investigate to be able to continue using that as an actual fountain, then if council says, no, let's do the investigative work first, we will certainly do that. We'll do some excavation, we'll have a look, we'll really dive into it, then come back with a more detailed recommendation. If it's council's wish to say, you know what, the fountain's outlived its life cycle,
Okay.
Then we'll proceed with.
So the question right now is, the comment is, we have money in we have money in operation if we want to explore what's wrong with the fountain. And then you've identified the various options. So is it fair to say that that could be an agenda item at the next Committee of Community Services, so we can discuss what will be the future direction of the fountain?
If it's council's wish to move that to a committee, or if it's council's wish to make that decision now, we're ready to proceed either way.
Councillor Elise?
Well, you know what, as much as I'm listening to what's happening, there's option and there's damage and there's blah, blah, blah. I think like we do with our street or whatever, before we pave, we go if there's work that need to be under. And then, I mean, before we just craft it, because it's part of the core and it's been part for a long time. But I would not be ready to spend $100,000 to fix it, that's for sure. So I think if we go an investigation and they come back to us with a price and they say it's too expensive, I guess the option that half of it goes and then with to be the mantle for a sculpture, I would not have any problem like that because I'm stating it too. I don't think I will not support spending tons of money on, well, no, if it's $50,000, $100,000, I would not support it. But I think we have money to investigate. I think what I would like we don't have to do that tomorrow as long as it's done before the summer. And I don't think it's going to take that long to come back to council at committee meeting and say, yes, we did the investigation. That's what it would cost, and then make a decision right there. And so that would be my option.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I would follow the recommendation of the beautification committee. If they said that they would, it's a problematic area for garbage, and to fix it would be to put a sculpture on there, probably just for what we would pay to find out what's the problem with all this. We could resolve everything just by putting a sculpture on it, with probably even less money than what it would cost to investigate. So I would support the beautification committee on this and say let's put a sculpture, because one thing you must not forget is whenever you have a leak, which it was identified, there's a leak to this fountain, that means the soil is saturated, and this is the reason why it is sinking, and it's going to become a very sizable job to fix. Thank you.
Councillor Denis.
Yes, so my opinion is that for 3,500, let's have a look at it and see. I really like that fountain, and hopefully we can get it back working. But if we can't, we have other options. But for now, for 3,500, let's have a look and see and get a report to council. Thank you.
So is it fair to say, Stéphane, that a report can come back to council, providing us with more detailed of exactly what Johnny has?
Yeah.
And we already have the $3,500 in our operational maintenance budget.
Yes, we have limited information on what's the cause and what's the cost to fix. We'll have to do that investigation. Once it's done, we can come back with a more detailed report to council.
Okay, perfect.
Could we have a vote on this, Madam Mayor?
Well, you're recommending to support the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Committee and decommissioning the fountain. That was your recommendation, Councillor Rowley. So who would be in favor to decommission the fountain without further investigation? 1, 2, 3. So it means a report will come back to council with further details. And my last question pertaining to the Franco-Ontarien, les drapeaux Franco-Ontariens. Last year we had $25,000 pour la francophonie for translation. And sorry, I'm not sure if it was captured in community services or if that was captured in corporate services. But you made reference to flags. Is that part of your flag budget, part of the $70,000 budget line item, Stéphane?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll wait for your report.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there, Councillor Lise?
Well, on the same, because you speak about, whoops, am I, okay, you speak, tu as parlé, Stéphane, non? Tu as parlé de les enseignes pour la municipalité en rentrant, là, qu'on aurait comme les autres communautés, là. Puis en parlant de drapeaux, là, me semble que ça serait beau si on pourrait mettre un drapeau entrant pour que le monde sache, OK, comme avoir le drapeau canadien puis le drapeau franco-ontarien, parce que là, il est officiel, le drapeau maintenant, à côté de cette scène-là, de cette enseigne-là. Il me semble que ça parlerait beaucoup. On ne sera pas obligé de dire nous parlons français, c'est clair. Alors, ça serait quelque chose à penser, puis c'est pas quelque chose d'extraordinaire qui coûterait des millions. Puis je crois que ça serait une annonce gratuite vraiment parce qu'il faut qu'on fasse l'enseigne, puis on a de l'argent pour des drapeaux. Alors moi, c'est ça que j'aimerais qu'il soit fait, mais encore là, c'est le conseil qui va décider.
Puis on va attendre d'avoir le rapport pour identifier qu'est-ce que le 70 000 inclut en fait de lignes budgétaires pour qu'on puisse discuter de ça. En fait des chiffres, if we want to review the numbers in that community project. My only final comment pertaining to projects, I know that Conseil Elise brought forward the lamp post to finish off that project on King Street. Conseil Dan made reference, to the infrastructure for putting those light posts in. There was mention about the dedicated reserve pertaining to parkland, which was money generated for development that occurred mostly in the core of the municipality. I also would be very interested in getting further information on the number of lampposts and approximate cost, because the further that we delay that, we will not be able to match those lampposts. And we have 15 downtown. We probably need another 8. And at the time in 2019, when the municipality invested in those lampposts, it was probably an average of $5,000 per, and that may not have included the installation. So I'd like to have more detail to see if we can move forward with that initiative, that project, to complete it since it's been started and not to delay it further. Conseil Dan?
Thank you. Just to give you a ballpark figure, apparently it's around $100,000 because of the fact that we have to go solar, and that I think we need 8 more lights. And I know that Johnny has been discussing it with, or Gail and Johnny have been discussing it. And I firmly, I think that strongly recommend that we move forward, because I just don't want us to see or have different types of lights in the way it looks, because it won't look as good. So I agree with you on that one.
Conseil Elise?
Well, I agree with you on that one, Councillor Dan. Is there any possibility, because we had some different grant, and I know there's forward to this year, and I know there's a lot right now that's been dedicated for road and blah, blah, blah. But is there a way that, like Lavigne was able to apply for a small grant to get, playground equipment? So why can we not apply for those grants to get those things? And even at that point of time, if our portion would be 10%, it's a lot better than $100,000, because I think we're working so hard right now with the development economic to try to attract people to the city. We have a building that's going on. We're looking at housing, but we need the core. And it's not because I'm from Sturgeon. I like going to Lavigne and Verner and see how good it looks. But I mean, the core is the essence of the whole community. The core die, well, what's going to happen to everything? And we've been on that project for so long. And I mean, we're talking about the fountain. So I would support, we definitely look at it. I'm not saying that we can spend $100,000, Conseil Dan, right now, because I won't agree to a 6.8 budget either. So we have to look at where we can look at it, but we definitely can look at it. And
So
see if we can find
if I were, okay, I'll pass it on to Conseil Leo. Conseil Leo?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on which line item, you know, the senior supper, is that council or is that part of the,
It's part of council.
part of council? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So if Johnny Benage already worked on a report pertaining to the acquisition of further light post downtown, it'd be great if it could be shared to all members of council so we can put our mindset on the actual cost, the number, and see whether or not if we want to pay for it all this year or come up with a financial agreement if we put X dollars aside this year and the balance next year. And I'm also hearing grants. Would that be fair, Stefan?
So I'll have a discussion with Johnny. I know that he's discussed this. I'm not sure how much detail has been put into the research and the cost of the lights and having them installed and whatnot, but I'll certainly have that discussion and I'll bring myself up to speed on all that. And whenever I can share back to council, I certainly will. We are in March. This is a fairly significant project, even though it is solar, there's still some work to be done. We'd have to look at logistically if it's even doable for 2021.
Okay.
You know, that might be a project that will require proper investigation and costing and be considered at a budget either next year or in future budgets. Not sure we could pull that off this year.
Okay. I guess maybe if I want to be more precise, I'd like to know what would be the cost to acquire the 8 lights. Okay. And as far as the installation and so on, yeah, there's going to be an additional cost, but I'd like to know how much it would cost us if we were to purchase the light post this year. Because like I said, I'm going with an estimate from an amount of 2019, which was $5,000 a piece. And maybe that cost is lower or higher, but I'd like to know how much it would cost to acquire those lights. And then for the installation, well, that's another line item and council can make the decision. Do we purchase them and get them installed next year or what? But I'd like to know.
But just as a clarification, Madam Mayor, the project, the existing 15 lampposts that we've installed were substantially more than $5,000 per post. And maybe you're talking just the acquisition of the post itself, but the post, the installation, the engineering, everything that was done was substantially more than $5,000 per post.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the acquisition of the light post, because what I heard from the presentation of the beautification, the longer that we wait, the longer it will be a challenge to try to get a match to those light posts. So I'd like to know if we purchase the light post now, how much would it cost?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So the only other question that I have is we're increasing the reserve amount in community services by 200,000.
Right.
Is there an explanation of the increase?
Well, we had requested last year an increase in 100. That was scaled back. So we've been under the 600,000 in transfer to reserve for a couple of years now. We know that we need to build that reserve up. We know that the preliminary information we've gotten from our building condition assessment reviews from our engineering firm indicates that we have substantially more investments to make in our facilities moving forward. So we're requesting the 200,000 in transfer to reserve to build up a reserve for community services that will meet our needs moving forward year to year. And looking ahead, I know that increase will have to even be higher than what we're recommending now. But until we have an asset management plan and all of our buildings looked at, and council can have the strategic discussion of what to do with certain facilities, we're asking to transfer reserve. We know that what we're hoping on spending in capital projects this year, the number's high. So that request is to support our capital projects moving forward.
Okay. Conseil Chris, Conseil Alice.
So I think basically, you know, the discussion about the land post is not really separate from the discussion about reserves. Like we all want nice things. And, whether we do the lamppost this year or next year, or what the plans are, this all sort of depends on planning and putting money away for the future, which we know we need because of aging infrastructure. So I agree with that. I would like to see more money go into the reserve and community services because at some point, and we're not going to escape it, we've got to knock down the school and field, and that's going to cost a lot of money, and that we don't want that to be a big hit to taxpayers. So I'd like to see it up. The other thing is, in terms of playgrounds and things like that, all the value add stuff that the municipality does for people, it's fine that we can apply, the dean can apply for a grant. Doesn't mean they're getting a grant. If they don't get a grant, does that mean they don't get a playground? Well, no, they're getting a playground. So all these kinds of nice things, the real stuff that the citizens see, they come out of community services, and I would like to see those reserves built up. Now, let me just give you a pitch for why we should build them up for the school. Because if we build them up for the school and we get used to building up community services reserves, when the school is done, that reserve can still go and we can do further nice things for the community. Thank you.
Conseillère Elise, Conseiller
Well,
Yvon.
I have the comment on what I got two things. I got a question to Alicia, but I'm gonna do the comment before because that would be short and sweet. I mean, I guess, I don't know, you might know something I don't know, but I don't think we're at that point to see that as far as the building you were talking about, Councillor Chris, I think it have to be brought up by council, and council have to how do you say that? To agree to whatever we're going to be doing. So I think you might be aware of something that I don't know, but at this point of time, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before we even go there. My question, Alicia, and I know it's going to be very fast because you're very good, okay? What you mentioned in public work, the percentage of grant that goes towards, and then the percentage of taxpayer. And the community services that we're talking right now for operation purpose, there's thing that goes asset, and is there any grant money that goes towards that, or it's 100% taxpayer? Oh, that. Never ring that phone, and now it's ringing. Okay, so I asked the question, Alicia, you understand? Is it okay? Do you understand what I said?
I believe so. So with their operating, the only grant that community services receives regularly year over year is the grant for the summer students. And then in the capital has been funded entirely through the taxpayers. We occasionally have grants for special projects that partially fund things, but not like gas tax and OCIF. We have not had those types of revenues in community services.
So summary, it's almost 100%, like the increase that we're seeing, it's about 100%. Okay, thank you.
Conseiller Yvon, did you have your hand up as well?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Meredith. I've always said it, I think in essence, we're bringing up a lot of stuff here during budget that I wish we would have just pre-discussed it at council meetings because it's taken up a lot of time. But anyway, they're important, and I'm not disputing that they're not. But I think a lot of what's what we should do and prepare ourselves, and it's worked. It's worked because we were ready for it. Is have shovel-ready projects. Okay, not necessarily mean we're going to jump into it right away, but shovel-ready projects that if the government comes up with a grant or of some kind, that we can right away jump into it and use that opportunity. So I think emphasis should be put with Mr. Johnny to look into shovel-ready projects to prepare ourselves for the future. So in essence, that's the way it's worked before. We used it, and it's been beneficial. So that's one of my points I'd like to put across. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if we're done with the operating budget for community services, we're okay to proceed pertaining to the funding for community services facilities. Conseil Dan?
I think there was something put on the table regarding increasing the reserve to just in case we do have to demolish the building and field, which I think is a West Nipissing problem. It's just not a field problem. Weren't we supposed to give direction to administration for that?
Jay, Conseil after?
I think that like what we did for the public works matters of discussion, we're going to park the reserve levels because that'll be really a taxation level discussion, right? So if you want to park that sooner, the only comment I'll make about, we're going to call it Chris's School. So it's just been rebaptized. It's Catholic, so we're going to rebaptize it Chris's School. When we contemplated increasing the reserves, we were contemplating increasing the reserves because from a financial perspective and a risk perspective and risk to the operations perspective, we're extremely lean and we're not keeping up in a variety of different ways. So it has nothing to do with one project or another. It has to do with the fact that we have $160 million worth of assets, and we're probably spending around $6 million total on it. And some of these assets depreciate pretty fast, right? Like roads, are 10 years, trucks, 5, that kind of thing. So when we're asking for an increase, really it is an investment in a non-tax increase or a non-problem in the future. So that'll be a discussion for a later date. My suggestion, Madam Mayor, is that we start capital next Monday, and because this would be a good natural break in order for us to just digest what we have.
Conseil, thank you, Jay. You're on mute, Conseil.
I'll start with commenting on the last comment of Jay. Jay, I agree with you 100%. How's that? Okay, we go next week. But I mean, before I go though, I'm kind of a little bit mixed up here because you did clarify a little bit, but I don't know why Councillor Dan and Councillor Fisher talk about the money to be put aside for the school, because at this point of time, it is a West Nipissing issue. I agree with that, but the building doesn't belong to us right now. So it's not even discussed. So you went front, and you're not encouraging people around the table when you're discussing that we're not discussed as a whole. And there were no mention anywhere in our talk that at budget time, and both of you mentioned it. So this today. So obviously somewhere, somehow there's been discussion that we were not part. I might be assuming, but I'm thinking that because you mentioned it. So that's my comment. And I agree with you, Jay. And to start the next portion of the meeting next week.
Conseil Chris.
So, let me put it back into the context that Jay just put it into, and let me talk about the school. That school is going to come down at some point. It's going to cost us money. That's just the facts of life. But just the general philosophy that Jay mentioned, like we are running our reserves quite lean. And I did say this last budget, and perhaps this is a question for later, but if you question Jay, our CAO, on where the reserves should be, and if you question Elisa, our treasurer, on where the reserves will be, you'll probably find a gap, and a comfort level gap. And, my thought is that council should be somewhere in the middle of that gap is what I would say. So
can I just comment, Councillor Fisher, that was true a few years ago. But I am aware of things that come before me, and there's an evolution of things that are coming before us, legislation and infrastructure. You would be surprised at how close Elisa and I's number actually is. my thing is that I know what is achievable at a council table, and that you can't get from A to Z in one shot. And so you can't have a 40% tax increase to, we have to do this in a measurable, sustained over time. I'm not suggesting Elisa isn't thinking the same way, but in terms of what is a safe and not conservative or risky level compared to Kenora that has $1 billion of reserve that they're doing nothing with. Elisa and I are fairly close on the total number.
I'll see Dan.
Just want to clarify a point that Councillor Lee's made. There was no discussion between me and Chris regarding that. I've been getting calls. Don't lift up your hands. You're disturbing me, like you tell me all the time. I received a couple of calls from individuals from field that know me personally and told me that they would like to see us support their problem because they see it as a West Nipissing problem and they don't see it just as a field problem. And I will ask you to go to any place in this community. And I've been forcing my mind, because when the person did call me, made the statement, there is not one building in this community that looks like that in field, the one in field, not one.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to do something about that, because do you remember you could run there every day where the Centre Santé is? For about 10 years, that building looked like hell, and we had requests to demolish it. We didn't want to do it. We boarded it. It was full of how do you call those people that do design that there's not as nice as the one that we have on the city? And I did that. And yes, it bugs you, Councillor Dan, but it does bug me when you go like that either. Okay. So please. My point is, it's a issue, but we don't own the building. So are you going to go in town and destroy all the buildings that look like shit right now or anywhere?
The language.
Sorry, I retract the shit. It's not
okay. Thank you, Councillor Elise, for
I
retracting.
apologize for that.
And right now, I think I heard the issue about reserve. We're being told reserve is to replenish, to upkeep our. We have over $160 million in assets as far as buildings, infrastructures, and that it's long-term planning. I also hear about a project regarding a building, which is not the building of West Nipissing, and maybe here, just a suggestion is put it down as a community project and put down an amount. I'm not too sure, throwing that to Jay and to Alyssa for our next meeting. Conseiller Denis.
Well, I can vouch for my bridge in Wolseley Bay that West Nipissing owns that, and that you come up and you want to destroy, take down a school, and we have a bridge that's not even fixed. It's been done, not in the 4 last years. It was done before we were here, and now it's okay to destroy a house for a school for $600,000, but we can't put any money in a bridge that we own. So I thought that those discussions would have been brought up later. I don't think I had to wait for my bridge till we discuss these issues. So let's wait for everybody so we all have a chance to discuss it.
Thank you, Conseiller Denis. Conseiller Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, in regards to the bridge in Ward 8, a decision had been taken by previous council with the information that was provided to us at that time. So if you're going to question that, that should probably be going back on. We had that discussion in closed session. So maybe we should go back in closed session to this. Thank you.
Conseiller Denis.
Well, it's a budget issue. I think it's a budget issue. We don't have to go hide behind the camera to discuss it. You're discussing your school. And why didn't you destroy the school when you were on council 4 years ago?
Okay. So on that note, I'm going to concur with Jay. We're not going to move forward with capital facilities and 2021 projects for community services. We'll use that as a fresh start for next Monday on the 22nd at 1 o'clock. And as stated, I've identified if there's an appetite to demolish the school and to put money aside, I want to leave it up to Jay and to Alyssa to see whether or not if that would be identified as a 2021 project. Otherwise, if there's no money put in the budget for it, then it's going to come back for discussion at a future committee meeting for council to be updated on the status of the issue of the school in field. And with the issue of the bridge, nature trail, we're going to discuss that tomorrow night. I believe it's on our agenda for tomorrow evening. So to summarize all of this right now, we will walk through community services, the operational department. I do know that at the beginning, the CEO made reference to the issue of Muskasong and the issue about Pine Poultry Road, and on whether or not if there'd be some type of direction before we conclude this meeting to find out who supports on adding those two projects, or do
No.
we wait until we get an overview of the entire budget to see where it fits in and what it represents as final numbers and how this can be paid for and so on?
Exactly. That would
Okay.
be our recommendation, so that you have the bigger financial context when you're looking at all of the smaller specific issues.
Okay, everyone concurs with that? Conseiller Liu says yes. I see majority nodding yes. Okay, perfect. So this will conclude our meeting for today. Our next meeting is next Monday at 1 o'clock. So we can proceed with the projects for community services. And if there's additional information to be brought forward then, great. We'll be able to work out much closer to the final numbers for that department.
So there are two resolutions, and this is going to be the funnest part of my meeting. Melanie is a ventriloquist because she has no sound. And so I will be the one speaking, and so I'm the dummy. So I need a mover and seconder for two resolutions. So I see Leo and Yvonne for the first one, and then Melanie, you're still recording, all right? Then Dan and Rolly for the second one. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-21, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, to confirm the proceedings of council at its budget meeting held on the 15th day of March 2021, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? None. Carried. Adoptee.
This brings back memories. Be it resolved that the budget meeting of council held on March 15th, 2021 be adjourned.
All in favor? Carried. Adoptee. Thank you.
How'd I do,
Merci.
Mel? Good? Did I do okay, Mel? Okay, yeah.